Welcome to UFO Classified. I'm your host, Eric Lukes. It's going to be a great night tonight, so get into chat, and we're going to roll a little intro music, and I've got some great information for you tonight. Chris Borrelli is joining me, and we're going to talk about the Wilson docs, so stick around, grab a margarita. The best is yet to come. All right, everybody, I'm Erica Lukes, and I am happy to be here, and I'm excited for my guest to come back again. He has had some controversy as of late, or people have tried to make this controversial about his military background, different things, and claiming that he's trying to debunk the Wilson documents. And I want to just say that I have verified his credentials. He is who he says he is, and I fully do not believe that he is here to spread disinformation, but we'll find out more about that in a little bit. And first, I want to just say hello and thank you to Scott Brown in the field. He is amazing, and he does the most beautiful graphics for the show. And then my good friend, Northern UFOs, who is Mario, and he is my right-hand man. I couldn't do this without him. I want to say hello to Sue, who I am going to be getting you on the show. Thanks for coming to chat. I hear that you and I really need to talk, and I'm looking forward to that. As most of you who listen to my show know, I recently was lucky enough to acquire the Andruffel files thanks to her family. And I have been busy unpacking 70 plus boxes full of really important information, over 100 cassette tapes of interviews with people like Dr. Jacques Vallée, with Rex Heflin, amazing interviews. And I just go over to my archive, and I've been indexing things and getting ready to scan, and I popped in a little tape, an interview of Jacques Vallée a few years back at a very intimate group, and it was very interesting to me because in this interview, he specifically states, as I've been trying to point out all along, that the United States, that our military has technology to create things that would obviously look like paranormal phenomenon. They've been utilizing that for a long, long time. And you can read more about that. One of my favorite books that is a must-read for anybody getting into this subject is Messengers of Deception, UFO Contacts and Cults. That is a must-read. Also, Forbidden Science 4, his latest diary, is very important because it references Skinwalker Ranch, his work with Bigelow, Nids, Kit Green, all of these people, the same names that we see over and over and over again in the field, and who I fully believe are here to steer the narrative and not give us factual information. Case in point, I want to say that I fully believe that the Wilson documents are just another form of disinformation. And I know that's going to be hard for some people to swallow, but let me just explain a little bit about my background with this. So a couple of years ago, I made the contact with Dr. Eric Davis, and I spent hours and hours. Most times it was a weekly thing, either on the phone or messaging him or emailing back and forth. And I have notes like you would not believe from our interviews. And I will tell you that something in the information that he was giving me just didn't feel right. It felt like a contrived story. And as you look at different people like Putoff and things, they've been telling the same contrived story and producing nothing for decades. And now as I went back through my notes last night, I'm seeing places where he blatantly did not give me factual information as we know it today. And I think that is really important when you're looking at a document like the Wilson documents or some of these other things that have come out. And I'm not saying, I want to clarify this, I don't think we could ask the question whether Dr. Edgar Mitchell was kind of snowballed by some of these people, like Bigelow, which has been lots of people have been fooled by that organization, by that group of people, and so maybe that was the case. Do I think that this actually happened? I don't. We're going to talk about this tonight, and I have asked, I asked Jay at Project Unity, who is pro Wilson Docs. I've asked James Rigney if there were any questions they wanted to ask my guest tonight, because there's, like I said, has been a big fervor that he is a disinformation agent. Chris, how do you feel about that? Are you a disinformation agent?
Yes, I totally am. 100%.
Okay. Well,
that's my job.
Now that we've got that out of the way.
I had a conversation with James Rigney the other day too, and he brought that up to me. He made that accusation a couple of times. And my thought was, how do you prove that you're not?
I know.
And I asked, I think I messaged you, and I was like, how do you prove that you're not, something? Erica, are you an astronaut?
Well, it depends on the day.
Yeah. How do you prove that you're not something? So
I know, and it's hard. And I mean, I have to say that I think we should be asking questions about people's credibility. And that's part of the problem, is that most of us don't ask questions, especially when you look at, Dr. Eric Davis or Puthoff and things. You just everybody wants to believe that they're the chosen one. These people are talking with them. They're getting credible information. And I feel just not factual. And I think when we don't question people like that, then we've got a real problem. But I want to give everybody a little bit of information about your background, because it is very, very impressive. You are a military police veteran. You worked personal protection for the State Department, a retired intelligence analyst for all of the three-letter agencies and a DoD. You were a gatekeeper to special access programs, and you held the highest of all government security clearances, prepared and administered defense briefings for Congress, Senate, and the President of the United States. Okay, so with those credentials, and I will say that you have been kind enough to send me those credentials that I could vet. You are who you say you are. And so for people who have not heard you before, they didn't listen to the first interview, give our listeners just a little bit of background on why you started to get involved in the UFO topic.
The topic itself is something that I've been into since I was a kid. I told that story on the first show that, my dad was big into astronomy when I was young, and got me into it. I remember, watching Halley's Comet with him back in, I can't remember if it was 84 or 86. It was 84. But yeah, he was big into astronomy, and he would give me, he read all the science fiction stuff, and that just got me hooked just on the subject itself. And my entire life, like my eyes to the sky. I've always been that way.
Yeah, and I love it. I have too, and I think most of the people that I can see in chat are, they're the same way. We've always had a fascination. Some of us have had personal experiences, and we're looking for answers. And I think for me, even though like now, I think you and I could both be, I'm sure people could try to say that we're skeptics, but no, we're just using logic. And we can see through some of the games that have been played and some of the games that are being played. And that's so important. And I don't understand why people think it's a bad thing that we're asking questions.
Absolutely. You have to ask questions. I mean, if you look at, if you want to talk about disinformation, and you look at the history of disinformation in, as it relates to this subject, going back in history, you'll see a lot of that stuff was emptied into the community by UFO researchers who were being manipulated. They didn't know they were being manipulated, so they weren't doing it purposely. So, when I hear some of the researchers, relaying information that I know for a fact is false because it's things that I've worked on, I have to question that. And sometimes I do come off kind of as an a-hole, I guess, because I'm not trying to be, but, I'm really trying to get to the bottom of, okay, is this person, are they purposely dropping misinformation or disinformation into the community, or have they been manipulated by somebody? Is somebody, who is, part of a cover story or a cover up, feeding them information that, they're taking as fact and just relaying that, in their stories.
And that's, it's such an interesting question for me. I mean, I've learned so much in my public adventures in this subject, and the people that I once held in high regard have fall far from grace, because I now see that, like you said, they either knowingly are feeding disinformation to the community, or they're just completely gullible and don't have that capability of using, discernment. I mean, and I think the more I look at people, you have to wonder, because we're promoting the same people decade after decade. Nothing is coming of it, just more illusion and more muddying of the waters and different things. And it's like, at what point do we not look back and see what happened to Benowitz? See the people, see what Richard Doty, and now he's a superstar, and all of these people, I mean, Hal Puthoff, who I've mentioned before, is I've been doing a little digging into that, and I mean, it's very interesting, and I've got to throw this out there, because in Ann Druffel's files I came across a little note about Puthoff and the fact that he was or is friends with Stuart Nixon. Stuart Nixon is the fellow from the CIA that came into NICAP and tried to debunk the topic, and also he was responsible for getting a few key members ousted out of NICAP. And it's like, I mean, it's just like, you hear these things, and then you see people who are holding these people on a pedestal, but nobody's asking, it's like, what is this about? We should be asking questions, and we should know better as a community how ripe this field is for corruption and smoke screens.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made by people who are, in the spotlight of things, who are writing books, who, there's so many avenues of revenue these days with, website traffic and, ad space and, YouTube revenue. So it's, critical thinking is really, really important, but, it's important to take a look at a researcher and say, okay, what do they have to gain from anything that they're putting out there? Are they trying to push a new book? Are they trying to, and there's, I don't know, there's a million motivations there, but it's important for everyone to use their critical thinking skills when they hear something that might be a red flag.
Right, and it's interesting, especially with the Wilson documents. You hear that people are specifically coming out and saying, nope, but that was not involved in that. And the only person at the end of the day, to my knowledge, left standing who's really promoting it or is Eric Davis. And I don't, or the people that are following him and kind of putting forward the information that he's giving them, that faction. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I know we want to believe, and I know we want to think this is the smoking gun, and that the United States, that we've got crashed saucers, and I just think, no, probably not.
Yeah. I mean, and who knows, maybe, but I'm not going to take it from that source. No way. And so that's a big thing, I guess, with those guys too, that are really upset with me and what I've been saying. And I think it's important for people to know that I'm not saying that those documents aren't real. I think I'm pretty sure they are real, the documents themselves. I don't really feel that meeting really did occur. And if it did, and this is the part that I guess I really haven't had a chance to convey, is that if that meeting really did happen, I'm wondering, and this is just my speculation, I'm not saying this is fact, but if that meeting did happen, I'm wondering if Wilson was vetting Eric Davis. Was he telling him these things because he was trying to figure out what Eric Davis knows? Is he trying to figure out who all is involved in this kind of thing? Who's asking the questions? what was the motivation behind Wilson if that meeting did occur, because there's a lot of things in there that just don't make sense. Um, and I've addressed those before, but you have to look at the big picture of all those things. If these folks would be in jail, I'm telling you, if this were real. Not only that, but Eric Davis himself, no company would trust him with a security clearance.
That right there, that is a really, really important statement. Because it is absolutely correct. I mean, first of all, when you have clearances or you're involved in some of these programs, you don't go around talking about it. I mean, this is
No.
just you don't. And you brought up on the last show that people, even after they leave, they are still bound by a code of ethics, and they do not
Yes.
talk about things. And so, let alone a
Yes.
subject like this. I mean, so what is the true motivation for creating this smokescreen?
Right. So that NDA that and I've heard people say, oh, not everybody gets an NDA. When you work on those programs, yes, you do. Everybody does. But those NDAs they don't just follow you until your retirement and then you're free to speak. They're considered a lifelong obligation. So for as long as you live, that's your obligation to keep those things under wraps. So I actually mentioned this on somebody's post on Facebook. I don't know. I'm always on there challenging people. So I said something about that, about how these guys would be in jail, and I can't remember who it was. Somebody came back and said, but no, they wouldn't, because they didn't actually break their NDAs. But yes, they did. If they're speaking about this subject outside of a secure facility, they are breaking an NDA.
Right.
That's one of the biggest things. You don't obviously acknowledge or speak about it outside of a secure facility, and you don't talk around it.
And so, I mean, why do you think the UFO community would be so willing to accept something like that without looking at that really, really important fact that you just made?
Because the UFO community, in part, most of the community are firm believers. I'm a believer in the phenomenon, absolutely. But um, you know, again, a lot of folks they want to believe so intensely that they're willing to take anything. You know, if this guy, here's a guy on YouTube that has 60,000 followers, he must be telling the truth. Well, that doesn't, that not necessarily. So,
Say it isn't so. You just ruined
yeah.
my whole life by
Well,
giving me
there
that
you go.
information.
Now you're done. Now you're toast.
Yeah, I had I known that all my YouTube heroes were completely full of it. I don't know. I mean, I think it is really a dangerous thing that people don't really take seriously, and I always try to caution people that listen to the show or follow my work, because unfortunately there are people that view the community as kind of a great community to manipulate and to take advantage of, and it's a great way to seed ideas and see how information travels and
Yes.
and all of these things. And I think that people are very willing to give up a lot of personal information and get on social media and follow ideas. And I think you can just see in the political climate, I mean, that's not necessarily the way to go. We know that social media has been infiltrated and by lots
Sure.
of groups that don't have the best motivations for us, and that's the same thing we see in the UFO community. And I wish people were a little bit more. I don't know. I wish people were using a little bit more. I don't know what, their brain. That would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also important for people to understand that when when government groups or whoever, when they're dropping seeds, like Richard Doty, when he's dropping seeds of disinformation into these groups, um, it's, I mean, obviously we're all, annoyed by that because, you have to weed through that to find, the truth of stuff. But it's important for people to understand that they're not doing that to deceive the American public. Yes, they're trying to keep those programs under wraps. They don't want the American public to know about it. But the bigger picture is that they don't want foreign intelligence services to know about it. And believe it or not, foreign intelligence services they're a part of these UFO groups. 1,000%. They're sitting there watching. They watch everything that's being said about possible programs and possible this and possible that. That's how they piece together their information. 90% of intelligence that is collected from foreign intelligence services is open source information.
Isn't that amazing? And I mean, I will tell you, it's been really interesting because especially with my work on Skinwalker Ranch and the kind of the expose that I've been doing over the past year on the motivations and what happened there. I mean, I was really contacted by a lot of different people from all over the world, and it was
Sure.
quite an interesting process. But again, you're dealing with a topic that is another power would have an interest in finding out information, because a lot of people like us like to go out and look up at the skies, or go to the border of Dugway Proving Ground, or go to the gate of Area 51 and then blab about it on social media. So what better way could you get information than to
Right.
have somebody in a UFO community
Yep.
talk about what they're seeing? And I think that is, as we know through the work of Jacques Vallée, when he talks about in Messengers of Deception, about how the paranormal and the UFO community is there's a lot of spy games going on there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, since the Cold War, that's open source information is it's easy to piece things together. It's not hard, and these guys, I mean, they've made a career of it. That's their job. That's what they do. So, disinformation is annoying to us, but it's not all bad. I think that's something we need to understand too.
Right, absolutely. I think that it absolutely is, and I know that in Jacques Vallée's talk that I was listening to the other day, I mean, it was interesting to hear him say some of the things that he said, which he said in his books, but I mean, it was just very much about, the UFO community. Every organization has somebody in it that is working for the intelligence community. And
Sure.
that's because I think Jacques Vallée's kind of thought process on that was that they're trying to, because some of the people in these organizations have such radical kind of extremist viewpoints, that they're monitoring them to make sure they're not going to go out and do something not in the best interests of humanity.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's all interesting, and so let's. And I want to just thank, and I'm looking at the chat room, and I want to say hey to Jasmine and Michael and all of you that are in there. I'm glad that you guys have found me and you're here and following the show and getting the information out there. But I'm here with Chris Borrelli, and we're talking about specific information, the Wilson documents and other things that have dropped in the UFO community and made quite an impact, and it's very hotly debated, and it's very polarized, again, kind of like the world right at the moment. But you see people that are on one side of the fence believing the Eric Davis narrative and believing that he had this meeting and different things. Can you give people that are tuning in and did not hear the first show with you, can you give them a little bit of information about the documents?
The documents themselves, I've been floating around, for a while now. I'm pretty sure most of the folks know the gist of what they are. But there's much debate as to, I don't want to say there's much debate whether the documents themselves are real, but there's definitely debate as to whether the information inside of those documents is real. And it regards, Admiral Tom Wilson being denied access to a possible or supposed crash retrieval program within the government that a lot of folks believe is actually being hidden by private companies and not actually the government. And um, I don't know. I guess the thought is that these private companies and corporations have more power than the government, and they're able to hide things better. And um, I don't know. There's so many things I can say about that. That's a rabbit hole for sure. But
But I mean, I mean, if you don't mind just kind of elaborating on that, because
sure,
and you did in the last show, but I think this is a really important point
yeah,
about that, and giving these contractors and different people more power than maybe perhaps they do, because there are checks and balances at the end of the day.
there are, and that's the big misconception. That's one of the big uh, pieces of, and again, I don't know if it's disinformation or misinformation. I honestly think it's more misinformation that these guys, they just don't know what they're talking about. But checks and balances are there. They are in place. I've worked on these programs, not crash. I don't want people to be like, oh, you worked on the crash retrieval program. No, I did not. But I worked on these carved out programs, and they have, you know, they have checks and balances just like every other program. The checks and balances are a little different, and it's more about the number of people that are read into these programs, because they're kept so tight. But definitely, the private companies are being overseen by the government. The government is um, intertwined at at all of their locations. If you were to walk into a skiff of one of these special access programs, you're going to see your private corporation guys and you're going to see the government guys sharing that space. They're working together. There's oversight there in every single one of them.
And you're absolutely correct. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know that people do think that you can hide things if you're a contractor, and you look at Bigelow, and I mean, I wonder at the end of the day what the checks and balances that he went
Yeah,
through were.
I mean, it's easier to, I don't want to say hide because that's not really the right word. Um, oh God, how do you even say that? And I have to watch what I say because
Right.
of my NDAs and stuff too. But um, let me put it this way: a so-called contractor um, may not be private the way you think they are. So I'll float that out there, and I'm going to leave that alone.
Okay.
But yeah, so
Interesting.
they're not necessarily private the way you think they are.
Right. Okay. That's good. You've given me something to ponder. I like that. And so I mean, let's go back to the documents and things and some of the red flags that you noticed when you were reading through some of the information.
Yeah, I had a whole book of notes and going through. I haven't listened to everything. I know I've heard some stuff about the Project Unity. I don't know if it's a podcast or YouTube show. I'm not sure. I'm not
YouTube.
familiar with that.
Yeah.
That's kind of new to me. But I did hear like people talking about the interview there. I did not listen to that one. I did listen to that 5 hour um, deep dive with Richard Dolan and Mr. X. And I'll go over this briefly because we went into
Right.
it pretty deep on the last show, and I don't want to just repeat stuff. But um, where is it? There was a couple things I wanted to bring up about um, you know that um, that meeting isn't in dispute, that it actually happened. Um, they're saying that they know that it happened, but that's hearsay. You don't know that that happened, and the only people that would know that that happened are the people directly involved. Now, I understand one of those people is telling you that that happened, but that doesn't make it so. And I hate to say this because I know nobody wants to believe this, but you might be being manipulated by that individual. Um,
Right.
and honestly, all fingers point to probably you are. I got news for you, and I hate, nobody wants to hear that.
I know.
So that's tough, but just I don't know. I don't know how else to put that. There's no way to really sugarcoat that, but
Well, and I
Uh,
mean and I think it's true, and it stinks. I mean, I've been manipulated, you know. I mean, I've had people that have reached out in my life because of what I was doing and tried to quote unquote handle me or make sure they were controlling or
yeah,
trying to control the narrative. And I noticed, you know, and I liked, I mean, like I said, a lot of time talking to Dr. Davis, and I liked him. We had great conversations.
yeah,
And I just, when I started, you know, hearing some of these stories that seem, as I look back on it now, very contrived. And then I noticed that I wasn't doing what I believe he wanted me to do with that information, which is get it out there. And so when that started, when he could kind of see that that wasn't happening on my end, because I like to sit back and take things in, and I also, when somebody tells me specific things, I don't run out and tell the whole world about that. But I think it was interesting to see how he kind of shifted from me to another person in the quote
yeah,
unquote community, because he knew that person would be a mouthpiece for their group.
yep, yep. And you know, Eric Davis might be a absolutely wonderful gentleman, you know, and that what's happening is probably his job. I mean, he's I'm sure not doing that on his own, you know, um, and who knows why? Maybe he's dropping nuggets to lead foreign intelligence in the wrong direction. Maybe he's dropping nuggets because um, you know, maybe somebody got too close, or maybe, you know, the general public is figuring things out and they're trying to lead people down a different path. Who knows? But I'm sure he's not doing it because, you know, shits and giggles. But
Do you, I mean,
I'm saying this because I think a lot of people think that I'm trying to like personally attack these guys, and I'm not. That's not at all what I'm doing, and I'm not a debunker. Um, like I said, I think all these guys are probably wonderful people at heart.
and then
So
they have a job to do, you know, whatever that job
yeah,
is, like you said. And I think that would is you know, it's always interesting, and it definitely, things aren't what they are, you know, they're portraying. And I think that's a given, and I think it's really important for people to understand that. And I don't understand why it's like this cult like kind of mentality. And I, you know, like you say, I mean, people just want so desperately to believe. I mean, I want to believe. I mean, I don't need to believe because I've had experiences. I know that there's something very genuine and powerful and important. And if I didn't think that, I wouldn't be here every week. But I've just gotten to that point, you know, that I feel that I don't like the manipulation that we see. I don't like people being taken advantage of, and I don't like, you know, we deserve truth. And you know, I don't even want to throw the word disclosure out there, because I don't need the government to disclose anything, because it won't
yeah,
be, you know, won't
yeah.
be
And
built in you know, factual
I
land.
I've had that argument with people recently too, and you know, people don't like what I'm saying. They say, you know, screw you. You know, it's disclosure, whether it's government backed or not. And I
What?
tell them like, you know, you know, be careful what you ask for, because disclosure with strings attached is probably not a good thing either. You know, just because it's disclosure, you know, doesn't doesn't mean that there's not an agenda behind it.
You know, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, those are great points. And so I don't know. I mean, I think, and I wanted, because I think this is a great topic, you know, disclosure, and a great topic, or I don't know what, we could lock ourselves in the closet when we hear that word. But
Hmm.
we have, for decades, there's disclosure has been right around the corner. And it was around the corner with NICAP. It was around the corner with, you know, I mean, just all of, you know, it's been the same song and dance.
Yeah.
And when you look at the fact that NICAP was comprised of people in the intelligence community and eventually shut that down, and now you look at To the Stars Academy and whoa, oh, hello, people in the intelligence community. I mean, what, what, with, you know, dangling the carrots of look over here and we've got this over here and we're going to disclose something, and then nothing happens. and then
Right.
even more of nothing happens, but yet people are making money, and in on things, and I just, people are doing TV shows and things like that, and you just think, okay, seriously, this is what we're waiting for. These are the people that we're willing to defend to our dying breath, really?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where critical thinking comes into play. Um, a lot of people are arguing now that we are in post-disclosure world because of the Tic Tac stuff. And it's kind of like, well, sort of. Yeah, the Navy has acknowledged that these are unidentified aerial phenomena. They won't use the other trigraph, but there's strings attached. Yeah, they're acknowledging it, but they're really leading us to believe now, if you look at some more recent comments from Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon and Jim Semivan, um, they're really starting to push the foreign adversary um, uh, picture. I guess I don't know how else to say that, but
Isn't that interesting?
yeah, yeah, that's starting to get pushed more. Before it was, we don't know. We don't want to say aliens, but we don't know. And now it's more of, this could be, we're hearing more and more, not just the threat narrative, but it could be adversarial. So, okay, all right. So what's the big picture there? Is it, again, like you've mentioned, a bunch of times before, is it money? Are they after contracts? Is that what's going on? And an organization like that, I'd say that's pretty safe to guess, seeing how they already got one contract. And people want to say, oh, the TTSA is not a government contract. Well, yeah, they are. They just got a government contract, didn't they?
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And you know what I mean? I've heard that with other quote unquote, researchers or saviors that have come into the field, and their big narrative is they're not beholden to the government, and so they can always disclose information and yada, yada, yada. But behind the scenes, that's exactly what they're doing, and,
Yes.
trying to get money that way. And you just think, okay, and I think with the Tic Tac, I mean, I would be willing to bet that probably is not extraterrestrial in origin. I don't know. Call me crazy. But
who knows? I have a theory. I have one theory. There's numerous theories out there. And everyone's going to call me crazy and Mr. Debunker now, but here you go. Here's one of my theories, is that it is U.S. tech, and it's sort of a projection technology. Which I hate to tell you is possible and very likely, to be honest, just the way that it moves, the way that it appeared, where they were, at their rendezvous points, it just bing, so I don't know. But again, I'm not gonna disregard the alien theory either. That could be, sure. Who knows? We don't know what the hell's out there.
Well, and I have to ask you, because I just kind of pondered this question. If there is such a threat that these people are pushing that threat narrative, then why are they building space hotels, or why is that the goal? It's like, how can you have this life-ending threat to the humanity, and then be taking people for rides? I mean, what? How does that work?
Space hotels and Space Force, yay! Sounds fun. I'm waiting for the space theme park to open up.
Count me out on that one.
Yep.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
I don't do heights, so I'm not going anywhere.
That would probably not work for you then. That would be bad. But it's just funny. It's like, this is such, here we've got this narrative, and then the same people are involved in trying to do all this other stuff that would definitely lead you to believe that it isn't a threat. And so where's the consistency in their theme?
Yeah, there is none.
Well, yeah, I think you're right on that one. Clearly.
It started out pretty consistent, and now I'm definitely seeing a shift.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. And
And
I,
it's funny. You and I were talking last night, and I guess I'll let everybody in on this. It dawned on me um, that I actually worked with Elizondo, and I didn't even realize it.
yeah,
Um,
that's interesting.
yeah, in 2006, because um, was talking to somebody else who had done some background stuff on him because I'll get into this a little bit. Somebody did some background, stuff into him and found where he had launched this company, a private company, he and his partner in the government um, had launched this company basically like something about shipping containers. It was a better way to load and unload shipping containers to make it more efficient, shipping more efficient, quicker and cheaper and all that good stuff. So they developed this thing, and Elizondo patented it. And they created this company. I forget what the company is called. I had it yesterday. And so I'm looking at this information that they sent me about it. And there's a picture of Lou and his partner. And I'm like, oh my God, I know that guy, the partner. I'm like, how the hell do I know him? I know him. And I'm thinking over and over and over, like, man, this is driving me crazy. And I started going through like all my employment, like, who did I know here and who did I know there and blah, blah, blah. And then I hit one and I'm like, oh my God, that's, so and so. I know him. And the more I'm reading and thinking about how I know him and our interaction, our daily interaction, I'm realizing if they were partners, then I worked with him too. So it all kind of came together. So now I'm doing a little more research on that because that may point to something else as far as ATIP, and I'm doing a little digging on that right now.
What a small world, and it's amazing. I've had some things like that pop up in my life and things where it's just like, okay, there's really seriously out of all the people in the world, these things are all coming together in my life, and it's a trip. So it'll be interesting to see what you
Yeah,
uncover with that.
yeah. The intelligence community is it's pretty small. I mean, it's not you know these uh, these programs are pretty ancestral. So these guys are forever, hopping from one program to another. So um, you meet up in different places. Like, hey, didn't I work with you on this? Oh yeah. So that happens all the time. But yeah, it's crazy. I saw that picture and I was like, oh my God, I worked with them. So yeah,
That is crazy. I just life is so strange that way with the synchronicities and yeah, and like you said, it isn't a large community, and it's probably a pretty tight knit community, I would imagine,
it is very much so. Yeah,
which is a good thing, actually.
yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be. That's your tax dollars hard at work.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I want to ask you, we talked a little bit about, this on the last show, but it's just a fascinating topic for me because there's all this, there's so many ways that this kind of folds over, but the Skinwalker Ranch thing and the fact that, the same people are saying that this is the one location on the earth where there is a huge portal that has opened up, and then there's this threat, and just all of this stuff. And so again, what are your thoughts on what is taking place at the ranch?
My opinion and my thought. Again, I'm not going to say this is fact. This is just opinion. I think it's a government testing area for sure. Um, could be weapons, could be even, like I said before, some projection technology. Um, and I'm curious to know how that, especially after hearing, Chris Marks and what was the other gentleman's name? Bartel,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
After hearing their story, real wondering, if that is the case, how is this intertwined with um, consciousness and psyche, and then you look back and you say, well, Dr. Pudov was working there under that group with NIDS, and that was his sole field. Was consciousness and things that have to do with the psyche. So I don't know. That's my opinion. My opinion is now. Do I think that there's some paranormal stuff that has occurred there? Possibly, and that's what makes it the perfect cover for whatever they did or are doing. Who knows? Because it already had a reputation.
And that's exactly it. I mean, I know a lot of people, would argue that with me and have. I mean, it's like, well, why would they be doing it there and yada, yada, yada. Well, I can think of a million reasons why they'd be
Yeah.
doing it there. I
Yep.
mean, yeah, and they have created a perfect narrative. And I mean, it's amazing to me that even after everything that, Chris Marks has put forward or other people have been connecting the dots and things that people are still, I mean, again, it goes back to that belief system. People are willing to, die on the cross of it is A, B, C, and D, and don't mess with my belief systems because facts are just too much for that. I mean, and I get it because I like honestly when I started learning some of the things that I've learned, I mean it rocked me to my core, and it made me
Sure.
angry, and it really it was a hard process for me to realize. And so I understand when other people, they have experiences and they want to look for meaning for those experiences. And I just think that it's just a dangerous thing to do that in a group setting, maybe a social media setting sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. What scares me about Skinwalker Ranch is that, and I don't know how much of this is true or not, and just from watching this series that was on this year, the amount of radiation there, um, and how much were folks like Chris Marks, um, exposed to that, and they don't even know it.
And that's the thing. It's like I don't know how, in good conscience, you could sit there and say that there are high levels of radiation, and then you've got the other group. Well, this actually the same group that is saying that there are significant injuries from being exposed to UAP, and that people are dying within 5 years of exposure. And I mean, this is the same freaking group that also said that they knew, Colm Kelleher knew that there were contractors deploying toys on the ranch. It's like, how can you in good conscience keep promoting that? Whether it's Chris Marks has brought up a great point. It's like you're promoting that type of thing. Where's OSHA? Why aren't people investigating?
Yeah, big time.
It's just it's sad. And I know with some of the blowback that Chris and his colleagues have received from asking questions, I mean, it's to me, it's shameful. And I think, I guess if you want a TV show and you can talk about people getting their scalp separated, from their
Yeah,
skull, and all these people that are,
it's
Travis
insane.
is, yeah, getting all these radiation burns. And then you've got the dying alpacas, or, I mean, but that were probably killed by reservation dogs, or and it's like it to me, it just is so, it makes me really angry. And again, it's like
Yeah,
to the stars thing. I wanted to believe, I wanted to think that these people had our best interests at heart, like a naive fool,
yeah,
and things. And I believed that, and I'd really hoped that would be the case, up at the ranch now. And it unfortunately is just more of the same Bigelownian kind of a narrative. The same people are involved. The same things are being said, and it just really is frustrating for people that worked there and were potentially exposed to things like you said. And then also it's frustrating for people that are genuine in their attempts to want to find good research and want to learn more and empower themselves. It's just another big disservice in that regard.
sure. And why on earth would Bigelow not allow his own research team on the property, his own group of scientists? That's huge. That is a giant red flag. You have some people there that are quote unquote security, and they're being monitored, but you're not going to let your own science team on there? Like,
that has been talked about by and verified by more than one person. In fact, I was looking through my Eric Davis notes, and I have that in writing from him.
yeah,
That
yep,
they could not go on the ranch after, and it's like, but yet, let's just send up other people that are serving our country and putting their lives on the line, and then let's see what happens to them, and then better yet, when they're asking questions, let's look the other way and pretend like it didn't happen, or try to discredit the people that are asking questions, which I can understand why they might want to do that. It's in their own best interest, but
sure.
but
And one of the biggest tells recently that I saw, that may be a testing facility, or was at the time. Who knows? It probably still is. One of the biggest tells was that they had one of the pilots, the F-18 pilots from the Tic Tac incident, there on the ranch. Bigelow had them there on the ranch. The pilots. Why?
right.
And then a few years later, now you have the Tic Tac incident.
Well, and from what, I mean, Chris Marks specifically remembers having a conversation with Colm Kelleher about being on board of the aircraft carrier after the incident
Yeah,
and things. And so it's like, okay.
yeah,
It is kind of interesting that all these same players are, very small group of
yeah,
players are involved in things, and that's what would make me question, especially after seeing the solicitation sheet, the OSAP, and where it
yeah,
specifically lays it out for you. I don't really think that there's anything in there that would scream UFOs to me, but I think that should be a red flag to people.
Do we know where Dr. Kelleher is now? What he's doing?
You know what? I don't know. That would be interesting to find out. I know that Bigelow laid off everybody. And
Yeah, just recently read that. Actually, what I was doing the other day was looking to see if he was hiring anywhere, if he was opening anything new, and I didn't see anything.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he apparently has a pattern, and you look at the Glassdoor reviews, you can see how people have traveled across the country, relocated their families, and within a week they're out of a job, or he's laying off, 100 people at a time, or different things like that. And so with this latest, now they can use the COVID thing, and see how that goes. But it is interesting that, I mean, we have people that support him and do marketing for him on TV stations and things, and it's like he's the latest, greatest, but yet then you look at this and you say, okay, interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that was huge. I saw that this year, that he laid off everybody. What in the world?
I know,
Okay.
it is interesting. Yeah, it is definitely interesting to see, or to look at that. But I don't know. Again, I think it's just another case of this kind of creating this illusion, thanks to all the the flying monkey brigade that he has around him that prop him up and spin these narratives. And
Yeah,
it's just like, whoa, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to me. And like I said, I'm not speaking about this without having a lot of evidence and having done
sure.
a lot of work on this. And it's again, this was one of those discoveries where it took me to my knees. I did not want to believe any of this was truly happening, but it truly has, and we need to be aware of stuff like that. So, as you
Yes.
know,
Yeah, and we're going to get to a point here. I think. I don't know about this year. There's a lot of talk that they're done dropping information this year. But I think maybe next year, I really, really think you're going to see some things intertwine, as far as Tic Tac incident stuff, the Nimitz, Skinwalker Ranch, TTSA. I think they're all going to come together here pretty soon.
well, and that'll be interesting to see the way that rolls out, because again, we've been waiting since 2017 for the big reveal, and it's just more as, I don't know, just not really, and a lot of good
Yeah,
evidence coming out. So, but it's good marketing campaign, I guess. I don't know.
great marketing. Absolutely wonderful marketing. Good way to get contracts.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's all fascinating. And like I said, I think it's important to stress again that both of us believe in something genuine, and we're simply trying to do what most people are trying to do, which is find the truth out and weave our way through this field full of spies and landmines and delusional people and all of these things. I've got a question from Peter just before we go to the break, but he wants to know what your take on the task force is.
I'm still observing that whole thing, because it seems to me it's just ATIP continue. It's ATIP coming out of the shadows, and now operating in the open now, maybe just under a different name. But I've heard, rumors that Elizondo's headed back to the government, which I can tell you he never left.
Right.
But I'm wondering, obviously, is that his direction? Is he going to take over that, or going to work on that, or what's going on? But I've still got my eye on the task force. I'm curious myself, whether this is going to be more cover type information for U.S. technology, or is it going to be the real deal, and we're going to start getting some breadcrumbs? But I can tell you, don't hold your breath on getting any historical stuff coming out like Roswell. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I think they're going to release, they have nothing to gain from doing that. So I highly doubt you're going to get historical information coming out.
Right. And we've got a question from Jasmine. One more question before we go to break, but she's just wondering what the source is that Elizondo might be headed back to the government position.
I've only heard talks. I want to say, where did I hear that? I want to say it was one of the UFO researchers. I think it might have been Richard Dolan. Don't quote me on that. I think that's where I heard it. I'm not positive. I want to say that there was another researcher too. There was a conversation between two researchers, known researchers, quote unquote, and that's where I got it. It's totally hearsay. It's definitely not fact that I know.
Okay.
That is hearsay.
Thank you very much. And I want to just talk about a comment that Phil made. Phil Leach has been on my show several times, and we always manage to stir up trouble, kind of like you and I are stirring up trouble here. But I think that in the best possible way. But it is interesting. Phil is noting that the TTSA came into the ufology world, and within a matter of no time, they gathered up data that took 50 years to compile. And that in and of itself is pretty alarming, to say the least. Yeah. And for me, having tried to get different archives to preserve history, I know that there's a lot of money behind that, and the people that are trying to get the data to basically push it in a little black hole and rewrite history. So,
right.
Interesting. Well, we're going to take a 3-minute break, so prepare yourself. And I want to just thank everybody for getting into chat. I thank you for spreading the word about UFO Classified. I am thrilled to now have the Androffel archives, and they will be open for the public by appointment only. There's some amazing gems in there, and for the next few radio shows, in fact, probably for the rest of my life, I'll be playing on the break, instead of music, particular clips, interview clips that are in my archive, so you can hear some of these incredible interviews, hear Anne's voice. We can remember her work and learn new things from a brilliant researcher that spent decades in the field. I am Erica Lukes here with Chris Borrelli. We're going to take a break. We will be back again. Thanks, Scott and Mario, for all that you do for me. This song is from Ben Sound. It's called Moose. We will be right back. Welcome back to UFO Classified. I'm your host, Erica Lukes. Happy to be here on a Friday evening with my friends. I love the fact that all of you have found me. I have been working on getting my podcast out to iTunes and different things, so make sure you share it. As those of you know who know me, I spend a great deal of time researching this subject, and I spend a lot of money trying to get archives and preserve them and make them available for the public. I'm really looking forward to, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm looking forward to scanning all my documents, my and Druffle files, and I've got a new two new pieces of equipment coming to help me get the files, the electronic files and the old slides, out to the public. I mean, I'm telling you, it is, Chris, this is the coolest freaking thing. You guys, you have to come and visit and go through some of these things. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm just like every day I just go over there and totally nerd out and just look at some of these notes. She had files on everything, and looking at the original photographs of this case, and I mean, looking at the handwritten letters from Hynek and Belay and all of these people. Cool. Oh my gosh, it is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I totally know that I'm a nerd, but it's just like I'm in absolute heaven. And I think that there are going to be some really great discoveries that will be made or brought out again, thanks to her family helping me get some of the archives. It's just, it's cool. I'll send you pictures and things, and I've been posting them on Facebook because I'm making progress with this. And oh my Lord, I am a big goober nerd. I'm a nerd. I love it.
Yep, I'm with you on that. I'm so jealous that you got those. That's pretty cool.
I know, and like I've got, the different copies, the manuscripts of Firestorm, and there's a particular version of the book that she sent to Jacques Vallée where he could write little footnotes.
Wow.
On it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like, life doesn't get any cooler than this. It's like real. There's so much, negativity in the UFO world or whatever, but these are truly like some really happy, cool moments where you can look at things and it's just like, oh, I don't know. I love it. So Anytime you're in Utah, you guys come see me.
Yeah, I'm dying to see that stuff. That'd be really, really cool.
It is. In fact, I keep bringing boxes of things that I've been digging through when I'm not, there trying to archive stuff, and it's just I'm shocked at the things I'm learning. So
I bet. I was curious to see how much of what goes on today in ufology, if any of that is captured in stuff that you got from back then.
Yeah. And she was pretty active until until she passed away and things. And it's fascinating to me to see the same names decade after decade, pulling the same kind of stuff. And that's why when I mention some of these people, it's like, holy cow, guys, we need to maybe be a little bit more mindful of the games that have been played in the past, and the good people and the people that don't have the best motivations, or the people that, like you say, are just doing what they are told to do for the safety and security of our country.
Sure. Yep. I've been digging into some, I'm going to say old news stories lately too. I just started digging into the Manhattan incident. I think it was 1989. I saw recently just on Facebook, discussions about TTSA and that kind of thing. A gentleman named Yancey Spence, who some people might know, had tossed in some comments about, there was a bunch of people like pro TTSA people talking about TTSA, and Yancey Spence had thrown in a comment about, why don't you ask Elizondo why he was shadowing me in 2006, supposedly prior to the launch of ATIP, and apparently it had something to do with this mass UFO sighting in Manhattan. But the case in general is really interesting, and I know Bud Hopkins covered it. Mm-hmm. It was one of his biggest cases, I think. But it's so well documented. There's so many witnesses, and that was in, I want to say, what was it, November 3rd or November 30th or something like that, 1989. And it was like 3 in the morning, somewhere right around there. Um, all these people started to witness this ship in the middle of Manhattan, uh, coming down, and supposedly, all these witnesses um, have the same story, that they all saw a body being floated out of the 12th story window of this apartment building, this high-rise apartment building, with 3 other bodies. Like they're saying they don't want to say alien, but they think it's little alien bodies. Um, but it's so well documented. There's all these employees from the New York Post that witnessed it. People on the bridge there, the Manhattan Bridge. Um, I claim that their vehicles just stopped, wouldn't work. Electric died. So that all these people were out on the bridge looking at this thing, standing on the bridge, watching this happen. And it's just so well documented. And there was even I want to say it was a Peruvian diplomat,
Hmm.
um, that his motorcade was going through at the time that this all happened. Um, I think Bud Hopkins called it like the Brooklyn Bridge abduction or something like that. Was his case name. Um, who was that? I'm sorry, I had this up because I was reading about it a little bit earlier today. I'm trying to remember the Peruvian diplomat, because he was somebody real high level at the UN at the time. Um, I want to say like here it is. Hold on one second. He was Javier Felipe Ricardo Perez de Cuellar. Jeez, that's a long name. Um, he was a Peruvian diplomat and politician who served as at the time, he was the Secretary General of the UN. He was from 82 to 91. But his whole motorcade stopped. His bodyguards were witnesses that went on record. So I'm really digging into that story. It's an old story. I'd never heard of this.
It is an old story, and I found
Yeah.
some files in the archive about that. And when I get a chance to breathe, I'll definitely share that with you. But I know it was quite a controversial case as well because of and George Hansen, who I'd really I like George's work a lot. He
Hmm.
mentions the case and some of the questions that were involved that were surrounding Hopkins and Linda, and it's the people that were witnesses to the case, and some of the discrepancies over
Oh,
the
really?
years and things. And so I'll share that with you because it is really quite interesting. And so what else did the person that you spoke with today have to say?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I reached out to Yancey Spence, and I was really interested in his comments about Elizondo shadowing him about this. So he actually told me the story. He told me today about how after this had happened, he noticed that. What did he say? Something about how he noticed that some folks were kind of tailing him or looking into him, and he was spooked about it. So he went to the police precinct, and he was talking to one of the police officers, and he said Elizondo actually walked in and I guess didn't expect to, run into him so close, and um, I guess Elizondo got all nervous and tried to play it off as he was picking something up from the police station there or something, and I don't know that, but it's a really wild story. So yeah, I had a conversation with him about a little bit about that particular scenario and his case a little bit. So yeah, I want to talk to him a little bit more and hear his side. I did watch his interview with Bud Hopkins, and he did a talk, I want to say in 2006 maybe. That's on YouTube that you can see. And he talks about his experience with the whole thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious to learn more about it. This is a new case to me, so I haven't heard the other side of the story, or the um, whatever is maybe not so open up about the story. I haven't heard that part of things yet. So
Well, no, it's interesting, and Peter in chat brings up a really good point that he thinks that he believes that Peter Robbins assisted Bud Hopkins on researching that case, and I Peter, I like Peter, and so I could reach out to him and have him come on the show and just talk a little bit about that case in particular. And I mean, of course, Hopkins was. I mean, I remember about the time that Communion came out, and Hopkins had his Intruders and different books that were coming out, and so the abduction thing really took a hold, in the late '80s and things like that. And so it is a fascinating period of time, and now we don't really hear a lot about abduction cases anymore.
no, not really. And I'm actually reading the whole John Mack book right now, but um, I was reading that John Mack actually has something to do with this case. I haven't gotten there yet. I'm still researching it, so I'm not sure what part he played, if he um, got involved with Linda or whatnot. I think he did talk to Yancey Spence, though, John Mack. So I'm still researching. I'll get back to you on
Well,
that.
thank you. I mean, it's always fun to find these new old cases, because
Yeah.
it's like you can look at it with fresh eyes, and more information comes together over time, and things, and then you also learn more about the individuals involved and perhaps some of their motivations behind the scenes, or whatever. And it was interesting because there was. The MIT, the abduction conference, and I didn't realize this, and I will double check this, but I'm fairly certain that Bigelow funded that,
Mm.
which of course he's always doing something behind the scenes, but and you do wonder why all of a sudden did you have the Betty and Barney Hill case, and why all of a sudden did the UFO thing go from this point to abductions, and then why are we not hearing about abductions now? And what I mean,
Yeah.
it is interesting to look at, and that was a lot of stuff going on, and John Mack was an interesting person that met, unfortunately, a very untimely death.
Yeah. Yeah.
And things, but it's fascinating. So definitely do some research and let me know what you find out, and then I'll get in touch with Peter Robbins and try to learn more about that and stuff. But it's
Yeah,
crazy.
that would be really cool. There's so many cases out there that, that's one of them. What was it? This year they brought back, gosh, what was that show? Not A Current Affair. What was that show?
Oh,
Uh,
not Unsolved Mysteries.
yes, yeah. And they had a case. I can't remember. I think it was up in Connecticut or something. But again, it was an older case that I had never heard of that case. There's so many out there.
There are, and it is always fascinating to look through some of these old files, and I'm hoping that right now, because there is such a push for people they have a lot of backing to sweep up the data and push it in a black hole. I'm not quite sure how
Yeah.
that's historical preservation, but I guess whatever. But I hope that we can have access to some of these cases that were really very meaningful and affected the people that were involved with them.
Right. Yep. Whatever happened to um, that John Mack documentary that was supposed to come out, the Aerial Phenomenon?
No? Did that come out? I don't think it did come
No,
out.
it hasn't. And they've been saying every year for, gosh, like, I want to say the past 2 or 3 years that, coming soon. But I don't know. Did they lose funding? What's going on with that? I don't know.
I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I mean, because that would be a really incredible thing. It was always interesting to see, when you look back at John Mack and you look at the work that he did there with regard to that mass sighting, and just listening to some of the interviews with the students and things. I mean, that was
Yeah.
really quite profound.
I'm always super intrigued when I hear of um, child witnesses. because they already, they have such an imagination as it is. But the things that, like I saw some of the just in the trailer of that documentary, some of the things that the children from that school were saying, and it's like, how would they know to say something like that? Like, clearly that they can't be making that up. So I don't know. I think it's really cool, and I see kids as witnesses. It's pretty awesome.
Well, and you could tell just in the footage, yeah, it was just such a remarkable. I mean, they had experiences that left a lasting, not a
Sure.
scar, but an impact. It shaped their lives, and it was just a very interesting thing. And you've mentioned that you do like to look into these cases where children are witnesses. Can you think of any other cases that have really caught your eye?
Off the top of my head, no. Gosh, my dad gave me a book a long time ago. It had it was basically a bunch of short stories of supposed real cases, but there was one in there that had three children, and I don't know. It was a kind of a wild story. It seemed slightly far fetched to me. It seemed more like the movie Stand By Me. A group of kids were kind of out exploring and saw something, but yeah, stuff like that. I'd like to dig into more if I can find that book, and I want to dig that out.
Oh yeah, you'll have to let me know if you can't find it. Maybe perhaps it's in my library.
There you go. You have all the books. So.
Oh, I mean, seriously, I have books that I didn't even know existed, and I have to just go back to this again because I'm just so excited. But it's like it is so cool to open the books that are, written by, by Valet, and to see his handwritten note to Anne, and different things like that. It's just like, oh my gosh. Okay, sorry to nerd out again, but I can't help myself.
No, do it. I'm jealous.
I know, it's so much fun. And she's got, cases in there that I don't think a lot of people have really heard about. And so I'll be looking forward to getting that information out there and kind of, reviving the interest in some of these old cases that might have kind of slipped through the cracks like you're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
digging into that. And that's kind of the fun part of it, and the fun process to go on these exploratory adventures, But
Yeah, dig up new stuff, new old stuff.
I know, I love new old stuff. It's great. That's why I like going to the thrift store so much. I don't know. It's just but and I want to, and I'm sorry to go back because we're having such a fun, happy conversation, but to
bring it.
Go back to some of the things that you're seeing from your viewpoint as somebody who's really, this was your job, was to be involved in and have access to, be involved with special access programs and different things. And so what can you tell people when you are looking at a witness that is coming forward, or a person that is hiding their identity for whatever reason? When they're coming for, whatever, with a story, like what would be some of the real key points that you would tell people to look out for with regard to figuring out whether somebody is really genuine or whether somebody is just a fraud?
You know what? That's when it comes to some of the stuff like this, like the Wilson documents and that kind of thing. It's tough for the average Joe for me to tell them what to look for, because it's just stuff I know from my training. But as far as if you're watching interviews, body language is a lot. Obviously, shifts in stories. It seems like the biggest thing right now that goes on is just wild accusations or wild claims with no evidence to back it up. And I've said it 1,000 times, and I will say it again. Hearsay is not evidence. That is not evidence. Somebody telling you that they, I have heard a million people tell me they saw something, and I want to believe you, but to me that's not evidence,
And so, if you're looking at evidence, what would be important evidence to look for? Because clearly there are people that don't understand what that might mean.
Sure. I mean, these days there's everybody has a cell phone with a camera on it, so there's photos and video, physical marks, depressions in the ground, um, you know implants. We're seeing, well, we have seen stories of abduction implants and things like that, marks on the body. That's hard evidence.
Well, and it's yeah, that would be hard evidence, and you have people that are on, that will say because it's, the phenomenon is one step ahead of us, and so it's never going to allow us to get good evidence. And I know that that was kind of one of the things that they used up at Skinwalker Ranch. Well, the cameras were mysteriously cut out, blah blah blah, and this kind of stuff. But yet, when you dig a little bit deeper, well, the cameras were actually cut by another human being,
Hmm.
and things. And so it's how. I mean, what do you think? Do you think it is one step ahead of us, and therefore we'll never really get good tangible evidence?
I mean, it's 1,000% a possibility. I think if they wanted to be known, they're more than able to do that. So that could be the case. Totally. Who knows?
And so, do you think that this is, I mean, I know this is, going out on a limb, but I mean, do you think this could potentially be extraterrestrial in nature? Is this, is this something? Is it ultra terrestrial? I mean, where are we, going with this, or what are your thoughts on the origins?
I mean, it could be any and all of the above. The universe is infinite, and that creates infinite possibilities. So, extraterrestrial, absolutely. I believe it definitely could be extraterrestrial. Interdimensional, that's, in the last, I wouldn't say 2 decades, that's been, a major study in science. Is that possible? I'm sure it is. Absolutely. So, it could be both. It could be either. It could be both. It could be consciousness. It could be in, something we create. Who knows?
And so, do you think, because it's very easy, again, to kind of, when you're dealing with an unknown, we all have the need to put labels on things. And
Hmm.
I think it is really interesting. And when I was out in California, I had some great conversations with my friend Gordon Lohr, who was with NICAP back in the 60s. And, I mean, he knew Kehoe and some of these people, and Len Stringfield and things. And it was interesting that, Kehoe basically was one of the people that inserted the extraterrestrial hypothesis into the narrative. And then you've got Len Stringfield, who's talking about the crashed saucers. But again, there's no verifiable, tangible evidence with any of that. And so you've got this, I find that fascinating. It's like, was that just inserted in there to, again, distract people? Was that knowingly? What was the motivation behind that? And I mean, I believe that. I mean, obviously, we're not alone, whatever that
Right.
looks like. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's fascinating to think about some of the possibilities with all of this. But do you think, and my thought, I was going somewhere with this comment. I feel like Grandma Moses some days. Jeez,
You
got
got
to
lost
snap
on the way.
back to that. Oh, good Lord, have mercy.
Misdirection.
I can just picture me when I'm 60. This is going to be very
There you
scary. It's not going to be good for anybody involved, including drivers on the road. That will be not good. But,
Yeah.
but I mean, you can see in the community, people have the need, like I was saying, to label things, and
Yep.
there is a big, faction that does believe that this is religious in nature, that these are angels or demons.
Sure.
And I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, same thing. Sure, that's a possibility too. Until anything's proven, I mean, everything's a possibility. Um, you know, I like to think that maybe it's a circle of life. Maybe, you know, maybe that's what we become when we move on from this life. Who knows? Maybe they become us. Maybe that's why they're so interested in us. Who knows?
Well, it is. It's all fascinating, and like I said, it's like I've had some amazing experiences in my life that I guess I'm still trying to label at
Yeah,
the end of the day, and I know that will never happen. But whatever I have experienced I mean, it was definitely very profound and very
yeah,
personal for me, and like I said, there's a reason I keep doing this, and that's because there is something very genuine, and what it is at the end of the day will remain to be seen and will probably elude us for quite some time. But it
that's
is,
yeah.
it is cool to look at some of the work that we have that has been done. We look at, I always point to Norway. I think they've done great work. Dr. Massimo
Mhm.
Teodorani, an Italian astrophysicist, I'm a big supporter of his because he's done incredible work along with Ted Rowe with NARCAP and
Mhm.
things like that. And there is a really good, and I've mentioned this on different shows, and I don't know if you've read this, but on NARCAP's site, they have an incredible paper called Project Sphere. And that really is a great read. And I would definitely, Ted has been working on, our NARCAP has been working on some new reports that are really great. So I would definitely tell people to go to narcap.org and look at the work on there. It's really, really cool.
You're doing it the right way.
Yeah, it's a miracle.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And
You
it's
know,
refreshing. So, yeah, go ahead.
I really wish to hell there was an organization that truly was transparent. That was doing all the studies. Um, congruently. The study of UFOs or UAPs, the study of consciousness. The study of life after death all together, and doing that truly transparently, where you know any average Joe could log in this week and see what they were working on this week and what were the outcomes, kind of thing. Not the TTSA version where hey, we're going to do some research and we're going to be totally transparent. We'll let you know what we find. So
Yeah, I've heard that about a certain ranch too, but I clearly
yeah,
that's not happening. And I think, yeah, and it would be wonderful. And that's what, I mean, I really appreciate about Project Heshtalen, as they have videos on there, they have sightings, they have research, they have,
yeah,
live cameras. I mean, it's like, come on.
that
And they're supported by some of the brightest scientific minds in Europe. And it's like, wow, that's how we should be rolling over here. I'm not quite sure why we're not. And what are your thoughts on that? Why are we so different in America with the way we approach things or create smoke screens? Because it seems to
because
be truly an American thing.
because the government is so involved in everything here, everything. And the only way you're going to get a truly transparent uh, study, I want to say an open study done, is to, you know, leave the government out, truly keep it a private organization, and that's the only way it's going to get done. But even then, you're going to have the government's going to, find their way in some way or another, and they'll take it over. That's our country,
And it is interesting to me because it's, and I know that they've over in Norway, I mean, were working with the government early on, and way back when, 35 years ago. But I don't think that was something. I'm not sure that they're doing now, and it didn't seem to be a big area of interest. Maybe it was a little bit, but not like what we see here. And I don't know whether, again, that's just a smokescreen to hide testing or I mean, I don't know what is going
yeah.
on, but it is
I
sad
mean,
in a way, that we have all this circus atmosphere.
it's the the world in general is still locked in this race. The arms race, the space race, it's all a race. So everything's kept under wraps. It's not going to be until we can get past that type of thinking as a whole, as a planet. Which are we ever going to see that? Probably not in our lifetime. I can tell you that. But yeah, it's not until we get past that logic and that way of thinking that things will be truly transparent and open.
And do you think, because this is a question I kind of I throw out there to people, you've got people that are building the threat narrative. It's a threat. It's a threat. We don't know what it is. And I remember hearing Elizondo when all this kind of broke, and he was talking about, how would you feel if you saw footprints in a carpet coming through your house and different things. And well, I mean, I had some interesting paranormal experiences in one of my old houses. I was just fine with that. I don't know. But I just, with that threat narrative, are these the people who are saying it's a threat, who are, I mean, since we're viewing it as a threat, it's like, well, Annie, get your gun and let's go out and shoot first and then ask questions later. And is that the way that we really want to approach this? Because for me, Absolutely. It isn't. You know what I mean?
No, that's just a major flaw in mentality in general. And I guess that's the way that, we're being shaped or groomed. But, yeah, and you can't shoot until you gotta know what you're shooting at. You gotta know, is it a threat? Why?
Right.
Some you have a flower bed out in your garden here, and a flower, sprouts that you don't know what it is. You've never seen it. Are you gonna just yank it and kill it? Why would you do that?
Right.
So, I
guess
know,
that's the need, the need to be superior, the need to put things in cages and observe from afar and things like that. And I think for me that is, that's a concerning thing. If we are really dealing with another intelligence, then why would I want somebody like Lou Elizondo to be the first guy on the scene to interact or blow something off the face of the planet?
I mean, it's a threat. It's the Chinese government.
But that is interesting, and I want to go back to that because I really think that is very curious now that they're kind of changing the wording a little bit. Does anybody else see that but you?
I don't know. It's something I've kind of been watching and quietly. I haven't commented on any of that yet. But I did see that. I also noted, because I stayed away from the whole unidentified show this year, and I was like, oh God, this is just going to get me angry. But last week I was like, all right, let me dig in. Let me watch a couple of these. So the other thing I noticed is Elizondo's going back to the UFO term. And, it's not UAP anymore. Now he's back to UFO. So I'm like, what is that all about? I thought the whole thing was, let's create this new term to get rid of, the stigma that was associated with the term UFO from past. Why are we going back to that? Is that more of the threat narrative?
Well, it probably sells more TV shows, I would think.
Yeah, I guess so. And I guess that's a thought too. Is when I've seen people say that show, and especially that one in general, I'm not joking. That one specifically is not really geared towards folks like us that are doing research on this kind of thing, but geared towards the average Joe out there that knows nothing about the subject. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I have to ask if, they're busy filming and things. How much time does a person really have to dedicate to a full-blown project?
Yeah, I agree, because there's a lot of travel going on in those shows. I know they're bouncing around to South America and all over the place. So I don't know. It's interesting, but again, I'm noticing I've been through. I think I'm on like episode 4 or something of the season, and every episode is the threat. What are they doing to our nukes? What are they doing with to our pilots? What are they So I don't know. I think the theory of they wanted to push the threat to open the eyes of the Senate to really look into this. I think that theory has, you know, is kind of overkill. I think they already got that. You already pushed that down their throats. They've already started to make moves. But you don't need, you know, the Senate's been briefed. Again, they know
for
this is
quite some time now.
yeah, this is not something new for them. So I don't know.
Well, it is interesting, and I think it for me, I find it fascinating when you look at I mean, who's funding whose political campaign, where, who's in aligned with each other, who is perhaps making money from a contractor. I mean, you look at the Reed Bigelow kind of connection. It's like you grease my palm, I'm gonna do that over here, and it's a mutual relationship going on, and things like that. And so I think it's for people to look at the patterns, not necessarily in the UFO world. I think that's important. I mean, whether it's the political ideology, whether it's because a majority of the stories that are being put forward on the topic are coming from Fox News.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, of course, we got the New York Times every once in a while, but it is quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, there's political agenda behind each narrative that I've seen so far, for sure.
And there, I have to just say, especially with regard to Utah and some of the things going on here, we love the military, we love private contractors, and then that's why I always bring up the fact that Utah has some of the biggest defense and aerospace contractors. I mean, in the world, concentration of that, and so our governor loves to do business with these people and bring in that business and different things like that. And so it's been fascinating for me, over the years when I was the MUFON state director for Utah. It's like I could barely find a case on a Utah UFO sighting. And then I started thinking, okay, well, wait a minute. Maybe because we are doing so much here with regard to that somebody's getting the cases before they're even getting into the CMS to kind of sweep up that, that data.
Sure. Yeah, that's a thought for sure. I mean, Utah's a perfect place for contractors and military testing and all that stuff. I mean, there's so much land, so much open space. At the same time, it's, you have low population density, so you don't have to worry about being seen as much. So yeah, I can see why a lot of that's happening out there.
Yeah, it is. It is really interesting to see that connection, and to also see the connections and, like I'm saying, political affiliations with people that are making a lot of money on things. And might be involved in specific projects that shall remain nameless, but I'm sure you can figure out what I'm talking about.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I don't know, but so I mean, what are your, right now you're going into the old case. You're going to look at that, and you're also, and I think that's going to be fun, and I'll definitely go down that hole with you. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no, quote unquote UFO researcher.
You're a disinformation agent.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
You are a debunker. Let's get it straight.
I'm disinformation agent, man. I'm Richard Doty the third, or the second, or whatever. No, Elizondo is the second, so I must be the third.
Good point.
So yeah, I guess that's what I am. But yeah, I mean, this is all pure entertainment for me. This is my favorite subject on Earth. So, to dig into these older cases, that's just for fun for me. I'm not doing that for any special reason. I'm not writing a book. I don't have a YouTube channel.
What? Come on. Every disinformation agent has a freaking YouTube channel. I guess that would, they could say that would be me, but whatever. Whoopsie.
You're the disinfo agent.
Yeah. Well, I've been called a lot of things. So in fact, I remember hearing, gosh, when I was oh, back in my MUFON days, I remember a couple people saying that I was working for Bigelow and different things, and I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, probably not,
Yeah.
but thanks for thinking that of me, I guess. I don't know, but it is funny how people try to make these connections, and then they don't make the connections and question things that they should be questioning, like the people like Lou Elizondo, who's in the intelligence community and would have a vested interest in steering the narrative, and why people are taking all of that at face value is interesting.
Yeah. Do some research, folks. Do some research. He's a
And so,
counterintelligence agent. He's a counterintelligence agent. That's his job. Disinformation is his job. So, anyway.
and like, tell us a little bit, because I love learning about this. I mean, I've been kind of pushed into that, and I've had to take a crash course. But tell us a little bit about how counterintelligence, what the goals and objectives are, and how some of the things are rolled out.
Well, there's
Without giving too much away.
yeah, there's two parts of that. I mean, you have intelligence and counterintelligence, and your intelligence is, intelligence collection, and that's not just on an adversary. That intelligence collection could be on any number of things. It could be. I was actually just thinking about this the other day because I see so much stuff from Jack Sarfati. I don't know his deal. I just see a lot of his posts, and he's trying to figure out the propulsion system of the Tic Tacs and how they work. And I guess he thinks he's figured it out. But intelligence, our own intelligence probably looks at that too. They probably get their ideas or get some ideas and, pass that stuff on to science and technology teams to follow up. So intelligence gathering is, it's our own people and as well as our adversaries. And then obviously counterintelligence, just the opposite. That's, that's counter intel. Trying to block our adversaries from, collecting intel on us or muddying the waters with disinformation, so they don't know. They can't decipher what's real from, what's being dropped in there by disinfo agents and counter intel agents. But counterintelligence is meant to protect. That's what it's supposed to be doing.
And so, I mean, and you feel that there would be a definite need for people like that to be involved in the UFO community.
I feel need is a tough word, because I've been on both sides of this,
Right.
I was never a counterintelligence agent. I will tell you that. I never did that. I did do intelligence analyzing. I was an analyst. So, is there a need for it? Probably. And again, it's just, as much as I hate this to say it, because none of us want disinformation floating around in there. I guess it is necessary when things like Jack Sarfati, if he truly did figure this out.
Probably not.
I don't know much about
that. He's interesting, very brilliant, but there are some. He is, I mean, there are a few pictures of him out there standing next to Puthoff, and
oh, really? Oh, okay.
And
well.
the Pandolfi there's. It's interesting. We'll talk.
Yeah. I mean, is it necessary? I guess probably. Yeah. Is it obnoxious and annoying to us that want to know the truth of things? Yes. But it's I guess it is a necessity,
Absolutely.
To a degree. I mean, if it's pushed in this whole threat narrative thing, I don't agree with that. I'm not real happy about that whole narrative.
Right.
Because we don't know that, and they don't know that. So.
Well, and then you look at what happened with Paul Benowitz, And you
Yeah.
look at some of, I mean, it's like, at what point did that need to happen the way it happened? I mean, I can understand that he was getting, I mean, he had some things that needed to be, he needed to be maybe a little quiet about, but that
Sure.
was really sad that
Yeah,
things
it's
rolled
like
out the way it did.
it almost seemed like it became a game to them, and they ruined that poor guy. You know, God, that guy's life was absolutely destroyed, and they didn't need to go as far as they did.
No, that was
And
really sad.
honestly, I would love to see Richard Doty. I shouldn't say it. Never mind. I'd like to see not good things happen to that gentleman from because of that. That did not need to go as far as it did.
It didn't, and that, again, it's like I don't. Again, it's like I don't understand how people are. These people turn into cult heroes, and it's
But
especially in the
that's
UFO community. It's like, come on, really?
yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that he's I guess, come out with recently, saying that certain things are fact. I think he came out and said just recently that the Skinny Bob alien video is real.
Oh, good
Um, and
Lord,
it's like,
on
how are you
high
gonna?
holy mother
And
of pearl.
yeah, yeah, and people are
Really?
running with this, and it's like,
Oh
okay, you
God.
know what this guy did for so many years. He tells you what he did for so many years, and now all of a sudden you're gonna be like, oh, okay, well, he's telling the truth now. What?
He's
Yeah,
okay. Hang on. I need to just kind of regroup and meditate for a brief moment. He really seriously is saying that now?
yeah. That I want to say that was just yesterday that he came out. I gotta find the. There was a whole tweet about a bunch of things that he just came out and said, but the Skinny Bob video is saying is real.
Well, I guess, Kit Green and the Bigelow boys had a moment where they were thinking the alien autopsy was real too. So, I mean, well,
Yeah, yeah,
I, yeah, but that's unfortunate. And again, it's like you've got pictures of him that in fact, UFO researchers sent me one today of him standing next to two bigwigs in the UFO world, and it's like they're all patting each other on the back and high five, buddy, and yeah, you go. But
yeah.
it's like, God, I mean, like I said, why would you hold people that have done questionable things? Why would anybody turn them into somebody that is this cool bro? It's like Lazar,
Yeah.
which I know people want to. For some reason, people believe his story, even though it has been firmly debunked, and way too many questions have come out about that. And I mean, the guy was, involved in a murder investigation and different things, and it's like, but yet people are still willing to defend that to the end of times, and I don't understand
People,
that.
they will, people will defend anything that they truly, truly believe in, and they don't need evidence. They just need to believe.
Yikes. Well, I guess it's like the Storm Area 51 thing and all
Yeah.
of that. And I mean, it's just like, oh, you mean, let's just take this subject back 100 years and have everybody out there in our tinfoil hats and charging the border. And I mean, I'm just like, why is this
That
happening? In
was
fact, it was funny. When we were driving back, I stopped at this place that had a lot of alien merchandise. And I mean, I admit maybe, 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh, sweet, an alien keyring and,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
different things. And now I seriously wanted to go in there and just get a microphone out and say, people, I'm going to tell you how this is right about now. But
Yeah.
it's just become so, it's just so commercialized, and a lot of this, stuff is very interesting. And I want to ask, because Jasmine, a few minutes ago, she was asking, we were talking about like counterintelligence and
Sure.
disinformation. What is the difference between both of those, or is there?
They're intertwined. Counterintelligence can just be um, a form of intelligence gathering, and disinformation is a tactic that they use. So they're intertwined. They're yeah.
Well, it is all interesting, and I think definitely it's good to just be on top of our game and know things like that. And I know for me, it has been interesting to come to the realization of, yes, this is happening, and there is a definite need to sweep up data, to control the narrative, to keep tabs on people. And it was really curious to me. It's been interesting to have a relationship with Gordon Lohr, who was there with the CIA, dismantling of NICAP, and to also see people in his age range that were there that says the CIA had nothing to do with it. And I'm just thinking, huh? What? Okay.
Yeah.
Again, it's like, we're not looking at facts there, but I don't know. It's the whole thing is fascinating, and I have learned more about things I never expected to learn. And
Right.
some days I wish it was more, UFOs going out and communing with the mothership and calling in the space brothers and, I don't know what, the Nordics, I don't know, whatever we're doing
Yeah.
today.
Ask Corey Good. I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of, because we've got about 5 minutes left for the show, but I mean, it's like when you look at that type of thing, and you look at the way that's, I mean, yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Because that's just such a loaded question right before the show ends.
Insanity. Some of those stories, oh my goodness. I subscribed to a guy, I want to say it was like 2 years ago. I didn't even know what it was. I'd never heard of it. And I have a very close friend of mine. He's a member of Mensa. He was big in an astrophysicist and engineering and stuff. And he was actually staying with us for a little while. And he was telling me, you should check out Gaia. It's, has a lot of the stuff that you're interested in. And I subscribed to it, and I watched. I want to say one day I sat and watched, like, I don't know how many different shows, 5 or 6 different shows, and I was like, unsubscribed. It was all like Corey Good and David Icke and all those guys, and I was like, oh my God, these stories are absolutely insane.
Well, and the thing that is disturbing to me is there's some we're looking at, I think, some pretty dangerous belief systems when you get down to it, and you look at some of the people that are supporting a certain group that shall remain nameless, but it's you look at that, and you look at the racist overtones, and you look at some of these other things that are taking place, and it's like, whoa, this isn't about studying the phenomenon. Again, this is about creating a cult and
Sure.
shaping the minds of people. And I think as much as I love learning about some of the new age things and empowering yourself and some of these things, there is, I think, a little bit more of maybe a sinister bent on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just, I don't know. I'm telling you, never a dull moment. I want to just ask, Michael asked a question, and he said that he's going out of his way to pay cash to go study different people that are involved in this. I mean, are people going to be looking at him like he's a government agent?
Not so much. I mean, that happens quite a bit when you look at, like, these conventions and stuff, So, no, I don't think so.
And I always think going to conventions is really interesting.
Yeah, I've never done one, and I don't know if I'm up for that. Yeah.
It's I will say I have had the pleasure of speaking at some really cool events that were organized by people that are just very sincere, lovely people. Deb and RJ, I spoke back in Michigan, and that was really fun. And even down in Texas, Noe Torres has an event down there in Edinburgh, Texas, and that was really fun to see the community come out and to see just people, kind of embracing this with a healthy dose of skepticism. But it was very cool. But then there are some, conventions that are very cliquey, and it's not about I don't know. It's a trip. It really is. I think you could do a whole documentary on different experiences at conferences, and then oh yeah, it's fascinating. Maybe just one. You'll have to go to one when all the stuff dies off, just for the experience, and I'll follow you around with the video camera.
That works. I'll wear armor.
That could be good, but I don't know. It's interesting. There's so much more to pick your brain about, and we'll touch base again about the Hopkins and his case, and then also when you get done reading the John Mack book, I'd be interested to know what your thoughts were on that, because it's fascinating. And if I find out about any school-aged children, any cases and stuff, I'll let you know. And I would be shocked if I did not run across some of them in my great, fantastic new archive.
There you go. Absolutely. And to anybody that's listening out there, if you don't agree with what I say, I'm an open book. Come and talk to me. I love to have the conversations with people about this stuff. And there's been people are digging into my background because they don't, because they think I'm a disinformation agent. Honestly, I'm the nicest guy on earth. Come talk to me. I'm here. Facebook. Look at me on Facebook. I'm there all the time.
Well, and like I said, I think it's good to be cautious and to look at people's backgrounds and their motivations, and in the same, breath, it's like, when you're going to be digging into somebody's background, how can you then turn around and maybe support somebody who's hiding behind anonymity?
Right.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many things there. It's like, if we want to have, a perfect world, then we have to be willing to come forward with witnesses' identities and different things like that. I don't know, call me crazy, but it's but you are a very open book, and I appreciate you talking to me, and hopefully you have maybe some questions were resolved. I did reach out to James and to Jay from Project Unity and asked them if they wanted to come on the show, and they both declined. And so the invitation is always there for either of them to do that.
I'm glad to answer any of their questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's what we should be doing. And if people are nice and respectful, I definitely have unfortunately seen some things that were not nice and respectful with some of those, with some people that are, I don't know what, maybe need to get on some hormone replacement therapy or something. But on that note, thank you, Chris, so much for being here. And you have a very interesting past. And I just want to mention that you are an incredible artist as well. Even though you make, and I cannot wait for Chris and I to have one of your beautiful pieces. It's just amazing, and I'll share some with my audience, because it's stunning. And tell people where people can go see your beautiful work.
lmcwoodworks.com. It's a bunch of my stuff on there.
It's so cool. I love it. It just makes me happy, and thank you for everything you do and for supporting the show, and that really means a lot to me. And I want to thank everybody out there for listening and getting here and creating a community of open-minded people that actually have a need to find the truth, whatever that means, whatever it looks like. And sometimes it's not easy. It certainly hasn't been for me, but at the end of the day, the truth is more empowering than believing a bunch of nonsense that isn't necessarily healthy for us. I'm just saying. But anyway, on that note, Chris, thank you so much for being here. I hope all of you have a wonderful and safe weekend. We will catch you next week, and I cannot wait to talk to Sue this week, and I have a feeling she's going to be coming on my show very quickly. We're going to talk a little bit more about MUFON and some of the goings-ons there as of late. It is never a dull moment, but stay safe, be healthy, and we will definitely catch you next week.